Hi, loves. I hope this finds you well. So, the topic for today is going to be betrayal. And before I get into that, I just want to ask or invite you to share with us some more of how we could support you. So, we've been having a lot of fun here together, Jasmine and Jamila and Dionysia, and I just feeling into what can we speak to? What are we hearing from women? What can we bring forward as free webinars or offerings? And we think we've been doing all right so far, but we have more questions about what's really alive for you, what are you really struggling with, what do you want us to support you in, how can we offer whatever we have to you so that wherever you are feeling less alone and more understood and have more resource to be with what's coming up in your world and what's being asked of you. So if you are inspired and have a little time, there's a survey below. It's not a bunch of questions, but it will help us to know how we should shape the free webinars, how we should shape what we're offering through the newsletter and through the work here. So if you can do that, thank you. Or just send an email, whatever you think, whatever works for you. As I've been thinking about that myself, just asking myself the question, what are some of the themes that seem the strongest, the most potent, the most difficult for women as they're working through the courses or her mystery school or working with me personally? And one of the biggest topics for sure is betrayal. What happens when a betrayal is experienced and how it can have such long lasting and such seemingly unresolvable impact that there are a lot of us who have experiences where we feel neglected, lied to, denied, where we compromise our essential self and just can't seem to resolve it, can't seem to, no matter what we do, no matter how we process it, have therapy about it, talk about it, it lingers. There's something about betrayal that kind of seems to, well, I know, cuts off or severs or compromises a deep foundational aspect of our relationship to ourselves, and that is why it lingers for so long. Is that you can leave the relationship, you can leave the person, you can change everything on the outside, but you still walk ahead as yourself with yourself, and the damage that's often most deeply done is the damage to our own sense of ourselves, how we trust our own discernment, how we know that we can know how to move forward, how to choose correct partners, how to read what's going on, and how not to get ourselves into really difficult situations or deceptive situations, hurtful situations. So I brainstormed three kind of core pieces that I think are key, that are really helpful to reframing and kind of untangling, turning the key a little bit in the lock that holds betrayal impact in place and the kind of complex of betrayal in place. I also decided to, in her mystery school, one of the months is Oracle, and one of the practices that we work with in the month of Oracle is called the Recovery of Knowing, and it is very specifically about recovering what was lost in experiences of betrayal, particularly around what has been lost in your own experience of yourself, how you listen to yourself and how you know what to believe in, how to trust your own knowing again, how to know what you know and not override what you know, and how to learn from experiences of betrayal so they become experiences that are like training grounds for you to become more of yourself rather than places where you feel like you've lost a lot of power. So that we'll put a link below. That's going to be available. We're putting on a really wide and low sliding scale so that any of you could have access to it that feel drawn to it. It's a beautiful, powerful practice. It's a teaching and a practice and an inquiry, like a written inquiry that will help you really work through more the kind of nuts and bolts and changing the fabric of your being around experiences of betrayal. So the three things that I was focused on in terms of specifically why betrayal seems to linger for so long and feels so unresolvable. Why it's like you just can't sometimes get yourself out of it. And what I would say in terms of the first the first piece of that is that we often think we somehow called it in or deserved it. So on the level of a worthiness piece in terms of like, well, maybe I deserved that, all the way to the other end of the spectrum. Well, maybe I called it in to give myself a lesson, to learn. It's like any part of you that thinks you deserved betrayal for any reason, that thinks you deserved to be mistreated, or that there was some reason, like some good reason why it happened, you can just dismiss. When people treat you like shit, or when they lie to you, or when they use you, or when they take advantage of your trust and they don't show up for you in that way, or they hurt you, or they violate you, or they, all the things that happen that feel and are a betrayal of trust, friendship, love, fidelity, all these things, that is on the person who betrayed you. Always. It is so easy to think like you could have spoken differently, you could have done something differently, you could have, a million things. You could have chosen a different partner. There's a lot of ways in which we basically take over responsibility and believe that we somehow created that. And the truth is that who knows if you somehow, somewhere deep inside of yourself, called this in, or you chose the experience so that you could learn some lesson you needed to learn. I actually have my doubts about that philosophy. I think a lot of things happen that are hard and that we don't deserve, and that it's just sometimes what happens. And what is more helpful than trying to figure that out, did you call it in, do you have some secret reason for it, is just to say, no, you didn't call it in and you didn't deserve it. Did you need it for your growth? No. But will you grow from it? Yes. So you didn't need it necessarily. You don't need to be abused. You don't need to be betrayed. You don't need to have a hard time in order to grow. But if that is what happened for you, will you grow? Yes, because you choose to. So finding your power of choice. Did you need it to grow? Like, was it necessary? Is it necessary? And will you continue to have to face these situations of betrayal and difficulty in order to grow? No, I wouldn't subscribe to that if you don't really want to, because I don't know that it's true. What you can know is true always is that you have the choice to grow from it. Whatever happened, whatever way you felt betrayed or diminished or repressed, whatever happened for you, you can choose to grow from it. And that is very different than saying, I must have some secret reason for basically punishing myself with horrible situations or difficult relationships. So consider that. Consider reframing it to a place where, and understanding where you actually have power of choice. Because one of the things that often gets lost in an experience of betrayal or dishonesty or violation is agency, is the possibility and the reality that you have choice in it, even though you didn't choose their behavior and you didn't necessarily have control over what they're choosing. You don't have control over what other people do. So, no, you didn't need it. You don't need to suffer, but yes, you can grow from it. You can choose to meet it and to grow, to harvest something from it, without ever feeling like you somehow deserved it or it was necessary. Second piece, which I mentioned a little bit already, which is losing trust in ourselves. So much of what happens in a situation of betrayal is that either we didn't see it coming, we didn't know it was happening while it was happening. There's often some kind of reveal. There's a sense of why didn't we see that? Why didn't we understand that this person was that way, or that this was going on, or why didn't we catch it? How could we have been so blind? And what there can be is a deep severance between ourselves and our intuitive capacities and our our self-advocacy. We feel like we did not advocate for ourselves and didn't know how. And, just our own inner knowing, because when you move forward from a relationship or an experience of betrayal, one of the things that you have that you're going to need is your knowing, because you don't ever want to go through that again. So a recovery of knowing and a repair of your own intimacy and trust in the way that you know and how you know is a really crucial part of recovering from betrayal. Because although, it's there is always a part of us that knows. If you allow yourself to sense back into situations, intimate relationships are a great example. If you are very honest with yourself, say in a situation of infidelity, normally you will be able to track back and think and notice and remember moments, feelings, physical sensations, just pickups that you had, that something was off and that something was wrong. Something was not being spoken, something was not coherent. What you were being shown just didn't feel right. And there's a lot of ways in which we override that feeling or are kind of encouraged to override that feeling. So the recovery of knowing, which is what the Her Mystery School practice is about, and also something you can just be with on your own, is about saying, like, looking back, owning and feeling and claiming the way that you knew what you knew, even though you didn't know it at the time. And once a betrayal is revealed, once you realize you've been betrayed, once you realize, there's a sister friend who's actually been flirting with your husband or talking bad about you, you'll start to, all the different ways that we're betrayed. It's like you'll start to, if you'll take the time to, instead of punishing yourself for not knowing or seeing it, understanding that you now have grist for the mill, meaning you have something to draw on. You can feel back into that situation and say, oh yeah, my stomach always clenched up when she was around. Or every time he spoke to that woman, or every time he would leave on that trip, I'd have a heat come, or just a feeling of contraction. There are signals specific to you that your knowing will use to tell you what's really going on, even if it is not obvious on the surface. And that's the knowing that you want to create more and more intimacy with. That's the knowing that is your deepest advocate, and that will both protect you from further betrayals and alert you more quickly and more clearly to when a betrayal may be happening. And as you do the recovery of knowing, as you honor how you do know what you know and how you did know what was actually going on instead of what you hoped was going on, you'll also start to be able to catch yourself in the reasons why you might override that knowing. And that's the other part of repairing your relationship to yourself, is if you did know, and if there were places inside of you that sensed something, what parts of you and in what ways were you overriding? Why didn't you want to hear that? Is there a reason you didn't want to hear that? What was it? And what did it cost you? Right? There's a deep, important reconciling with yourself and a repair of your relationship to yourself that is necessary for betrayal, for experiences of betrayal to ever fully resolve. You'll never resolve it with the person. You'll never resolve it by going into the past. You will resolve it with yourself in the present moment as you recover how you know what you know and your trust in yourself. So the third thing, we've got losing trust in yourself and needing to repair that as one of the reasons why betrayal doesn't resolve. And then we have the piece about thinking you somehow deserved it for whatever reason or needed it in order to grow. The third piece is an elaboration on the theme of thinking that you should have known better. And what this one is about is that there's a way that one of the reasons that you shouldn't have known better is that when a person or when a culture, an entire culture, is invested for any reason in lying to you or betraying you or being dishonest or hiding something from you, they are masterful. People who are nurturing infidelity, people who have addictions, hidden agendas, cultures that have hidden agendas that financial institutions and all sorts of social institutions all depend upon. It's not like, 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 it's not like it's masterful. So it's a lot of us feel like if we've had the wool pulled over our eyes, or if we have been betrayed or lied to, that somehow that's a failing in us, that we failed to catch it. And there's a berating of self that comes into that, and a further diminishing of self. What's really true is that most of us, probably all of us, at some time, at least once, if not multiple times, either culturally or personally, are going to find ourselves in situations where we've been betrayed. Like really well betrayed, really well lied to, really deceived. And the feeling we'll often walk away with, first of all, it's a horrible feeling to be deceived. It's a horrible feeling to walk away with from any interaction. But the feeling we'll often walk away with is that somehow we've failed, and we should have known better. We should have seen that coming, whatever it was. And then we fail to pick up on the incredible power move that it is to wake up out of betrayal. So if you've had betrayals in your life, and part of you is berating yourself for not having seen it or known it, or for having believed in it for so long. A lot of this can be when you wake up out of a cultural norm, or, a certain perspective you've had on yourself as a woman, or just even these bigger pieces that are implanted and put on us from the overculture even. When you wake up out of something like that, or when you wake up and you finally realize your husband's cheating on you, or you wake up and you finally realize that this friend or this woman is in competition with you, she was never really your friend, all the different ways, see if instead of letting that collapse in on you at all in any way, if you can really claim the power and the discernment and the courage and the perception that it takes to wake up out of betrayal. Because you are waking up often inside of something that was created around you and with you by someone or something that really didn't want you to wake up out of that. They had their own agenda, their own reasons why they want you to not know what you should know, not know what you really know, not be able to access your deeper knowing and your deeper self-advocacy. So consider that. Consider revisiting betrayals in your life and honoring the person that you were, and the person that you were when you woke up out of that, and when you had the courage to name it, speak to it, make a movement, make a change because of it, and honor the person that you are now. It is enough. It is enough to wake up out of it. That is a power move and an initiation in and of itself. Do not linger in the reality, or in what you think was lost, or who you think you were as someone who was being betrayed, or as someone who wasn't able to maybe take care of herself in the way that you think you ought to have, or that it should have happened. Okay, so those are 3 keys that, to me, and just in working with women and myself a lot, have been core to that. There are lots of ways to work with betrayal. You might want to do therapy, somatic work. There's also ritual. There's all sorts of ways. But coming into touching on these 3 pieces feel very core to just turning that final key in the lock and just releasing yourself from the trap that it can be to have experienced a complex, and all of the emotions and all of the entrapment that can come with an experience of betrayal. So please, if you can, and if you feel inspired, take a minute with the survey and just let us know how we can serve you, and what you'd like to hear, and what we should bring forward for you. How can we support? How can we, a lot of what we hear from women is just that feeling of being alone and not validated, and really needing, just in whatever way, just more. So That's what we're here for. And we want to speak to your heart and speak to your lives and what's really true and what's really relevant and what's hard for you and what's just compelling. What are you curious about? What do you want to know more about? What do you wish you could open up in your life as a woman, as a being? And yes, and if you're feeling drawn at all to her mystery school, we are just completing the second year. It's amazing. I would love to spend the time with you. You are all very deeply invited from my heart, and enrollment is open. So you may enroll, you may be in touch with us about questions, anything anything that you need in around that. We'll be beginning this summer. We're expanding it. We learn every year more and more how to support and how to make it more of a like a fuller experience for all the women who are in it all over the world. And I feel excited about this third year and what's coming in. One of the things is that over the summertime, starting June, is when we're going to start to actually gather. Start gathering the energy, start gathering the intention. So if you're called to come, you can join anytime up until we begin in September. But if you want to start sooner, we are here for you, and we'll already start weaving the this collective of women together for the third cycle. So, all my love to you. I hope this was helpful around betrayal. I know that most of us have experienced that at some point, and I look forward to hearing from you in any way about how we can love and support you even more. Blessed be.